When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't even feel a surge of anger. I just smiled. It was a small, quiet thing. The kind of smile you give when you finally understand a joke that's been told at your expense for a very long time. She stood there, my son's wife, in the doorway of what had been my home for 3 years. Her arms were crossed, not in fury, but in a kind of tired certainty. The afternoon light from the hallway window cut across the floor between us. A bright line I knew I shouldn't cross. "Mom," she said, and her voice was so calm it made my heart ache. "I think it's time for all of us, don't you?" And I looked past her, into the living room where my grandson's toy truck lay overturned on the rug. I looked at the familiar cushion on the sofa, the one with the small stain from where I'd spilled my tea last winter. I looked at the photo on the wall, my son, beaming, his arm around her on their wedding day. And then I looked back at her young, strained face. That's when I smiled, because in that moment, I didn't see a cruel woman throwing out an old lady. I saw a girl drowning in a life that felt too small, and the largest thing she could think to move was me. So I nodded. I said, "Okay." Just that one word, and I turned to go and pack my suitcase. But this story, it doesn't start with that door closing. It starts much earlier. It starts with joy, and with the sound of a baby laughing. It starts with me believing I had found my place in the world again, after so many years of being alone. This is the story of how I learned that love, even the deepest, most genuine love, can sometimes be a weight, and how leaving, sometimes, is the last act of love you have left to give. For 20 years after my husband, Robert, passed, my world was very quiet. It was just me and our little house with the blue shutters. My son David was my greatest joy. He'd visit every Sunday without fail. We'd have roast chicken. He'd tell me about his work, his life, but I could always feel the clock ticking. When he'd hug me goodbye at the door, the silence that followed him out was a physical thing. It would settle back into the rooms, thick and heavy. I filled my time. I gardened. I joined a book club with women who mostly talked about their grandchildren. I learned to be very good at being alone, but there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness has a sound. It's the echo of your own footsteps in a hallway. It's the kettle whistling for one. Then David met Maya. Oh, she was a spark. That girl, all dark eyes and strong opinions. She made him laugh in a way I hadn't heard since his father was alive. When he brought her to meet me, I was nervous. I made my famous lemon cake, the one Robert always loved. She ate a slice, complimented it, and then said, "It's lovely, Mrs. Anderson. But can I be honest? I think a touch of lavender in the glaze would be just divine." I was taken aback. No one had ever critiqued my lemon cake. But then I saw the twinkle in her eye. She wasn't being rude. She was just being Maya. Present, real. I found myself laughing. "Next time," I said, "you can make the glaze." They married in a small garden ceremony. I held David's arm as we walked down the aisle together. My heart was so full it felt like it might spill over. I wasn't losing a son. I was gaining a daughter. That's what I told everyone, and I truly believed it. When Maya got pregnant, the happiness in our little family was a bright, warm light. I knitted tiny booties. I refinished the old crib that had been David's. I felt useful, needed. Then little Leo arrived. He had his father's nose and his mother's fierce, curious gaze. The first time I held him, he wrapped his tiny hand around my finger, and I felt a love so sharp and new it brought tears to my eyes. I was a grandmother. Nana. The problems started slowly. So slowly they were almost invisible, like the first chill in the air before you realize summer is truly over. David and Maya both had demanding jobs. The cost of childcare was staggering. One Sunday, over another lemon cake, this time with lavender, at Maya's insistence, David put his hand over mine. "Mom," he said, his voice careful, "we were thinking, the house is too big for you now, and with Leo, we could use the help. What if you sold the blue house and moved in with us? We've got the finished basement. It's a proper little apartment. You'd have your own space." He made it sound like a gift, and to me it was an answer to a prayer I hadn't even dared to whisper. To be in the same house as my grandson, to hear his laughter every day, to be part of the noise, the mess, the beautiful chaos of a family. I sold my home, the house where I'd raised David, where I'd loved Robert. I sold the furniture, gave away boxes of memories, and kept only what would fit into my new, basement home. It didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a beginning. I was coming in from the cold of my loneliness into the warm, bustling kitchen of my son's life. For the first year, it was perfect, or as close to perfect as life gets. Music takes on a slightly lighter, warmer tone, then mellows. I'd wake up early and make breakfast. Maya, always rushing, would grab a piece of toast with a grateful smile. David would bring Leo down to me in his pajamas, and we'd watch the sunrise together. I did the school run, the grocery shopping. I kept the house running like a smooth, quiet engine. I felt like the keystone of an action scene, but holding everything together. In the evenings, we'd often eat together. Those were my favorite times. The four of us around the table. Leo in his high chair banging a spoon. David talking about his day. Maya, always full of plans for a vacation, for renovating the upstairs bathroom, for Leo's future. I'd listen. I'd wash the dishes. I'd feel a deep, contented peace. This was my purpose now. This was my family. But no one tells you that when you move into someone else's life, even your child's, you become a guest in their story, and guests, no matter how loved, have to be careful not to overstay. The trouble is, I didn't know I was a guest. I thought I had come home. The first sign was the silence, not an angry silence, a thoughtful one. It used to be that Maya would come down to my little sitting area, plop on the sofa, and just talk about her annoying boss, about a movie she'd seen, about nothing at all. Then, those visits became less frequent. She'd call down the stairs instead. Mom, did you pick up Leo's prescription? Or, Mom, the plumber is coming at 10. Our conversations became a checklist. Practical, efficient. One night, I made a shepherd's pie, David's favorite. He worked late, and Maya had a work dinner. It was just Leo and me. I put him to bed and waited, the pie keeping warm in the oven. When David came home, he looked exhausted. He gave me a tired hug. Smells great, Mom. But I grabbed a sandwich at the desk. I'm just going to crash. He went upstairs. I stood in the kitchen, looking at the full pie dish. I wrapped it up and put it in the fridge. The quiet of the house felt different that night. It wasn't the old, familiar silence of my blue house. It was a new silence, a busy silence, full of lives being lived just above my head. Lives I was no longer a central part of. Then, the small suggestions began, always from Maya, always framed as helpful. Mom, I read that too much screen time isn't good for toddlers. Maybe we should cut back on the cartoons Leo watches with you in the afternoons. Mom, this pediatrician online says a more structured nap schedule is key. Let me print the chart for you. Mom, I've signed Leo up for this advanced music class on Saturdays. It's really important for his development. Each time, it was like a tiny pin, a small deflation. The way I'd raised David, who turned out just fine, was being gently, persistently edited. I wasn't Nana anymore. I was the babysitter, and the babysitter needed a manual. I tried to adapt. I followed the charts. I turned off the cartoons. I drove Leo to his music class, where other, younger mothers sat together, chatting as I sat by myself, smiling at Leo through the window. One afternoon, Maya came home early. Leo and I were in the living room. He was building a towering, unstable castle out of blocks. I was cheering him on. Make it taller, Leo, to the sky. He was giggling, adding a block with shaky hands. The tower wobbled, and with a glorious crash, it fell everywhere. Leo shrieked with laughter, clapping his hands. I was laughing too, scooping him up for a hug. Maya stood in the doorway, her briefcase in her hand. She wasn't laughing. She looked at the blocks scattered across the entire rug. She looked at Leo's flushed, overexcited face. Wow, she said, her voice flat. That's quite a mess. The joy drained from the room, swift and cold. We were just playing, I said, my voice suddenly sounding too loud, too defensive. I see that, Maya said. She put down her briefcase and began picking up the blocks, her movements precise. It's just, I spend all day trying to teach him order, cleanup time, gentle play. It's hard when the rules are different. She didn't say, with you. She didn't have to. The words hung in the air between us. I am the different rule. The thought came to me, clear and cold. I started to shrink. I became quieter, more careful. I'd vacuumed the rug twice to make sure I got every crumb. I'd checked the nap chart 5 times a day. I stopped making suggestions about meals. I stopped telling stories about David as a boy, because Maya would often smile and say, "That was a different time, Mom. The science has changed." I felt myself becoming a ghost in their home, a very helpful, very quiet ghost. The tension wasn't with David. With David, I was still just mom. He'd hug me, ask if I needed anything, tell me I was doing a great job with Leo. But he was like a sun, shining brightly, unaware of the small, cold shadow that had fallen between his wife and his mother. He was busy building a life. He didn't see that the foundation was developing a crack. And I was standing right in the middle of it. The arguments started upstairs. I couldn't hear the words, just the low, urgent murmur of voices through the floorboards of my ceiling, a tense vibration in the house. They never argued in front of me, but the air would be thick with it the next morning. Maya would be clipped. David would be overly cheerful. One Saturday, the breaking point came. It was such a small thing. It was a rainy Saturday. David was working in the garage. Maya was at a yoga class. Leo was napping. I decided to bake. Baking always soothed me. The measuring, the mixing, the predictable chemistry of it. I wanted to make blueberry muffins. I reached for a large ceramic bowl to mix the batter. It was a beautiful, hand-thrown bowl, glazed a deep oceanic blue. Robert had bought it for me on a trip to the coast a lifetime ago. It was one of the few things I'd brought from my old life. It lived in the upper cabinet, used only by me. As I was folding the blueberries into the batter, Leo woke up earlier than expected. He was fussy, so I lifted him onto the kitchen counter, well away from the edge, to watch. He babbled happily, grabbing at the spoon. In a moment of distraction, I let him hold the wooden spoon. He waved it with a delighted squeal. And he knocked the beautiful blue bowl. It seemed to fall in slow motion. It hit the tile floor with a sound that was not a crash, but a deep, final crack. It broke into 3 large, jagged pieces and 100 tiny shards. Blueberry batter splattered across the floor like a sad, purple wound. My heart stopped. That bowl, my last tangible connection to a happy, ordinary day with Robert, gone. I was close to tears as I carefully put Leo in his playpen. I got the dustpan and brush. I was on my hands and knees, picking up the pieces, when Maya came back. She walked into the kitchen, her yoga mat under her arm. She took in the scene, me, on the floor, the shattered pottery, the mess. "Oh no," she said. She put her mat down. "What happened?" "It was an accident," I said, my voice thick. "Leo knocked it. My bowl. Is he okay?" she asked immediately, rushing to the playpen. She scooped Leo up, checking him over for scratches. "He's fine. He wasn't near it. I'm so sorry about the mess. I'll clean it." "It's not the mess, Mom," she said, her voice tight. She was holding Leo close, her back to me. "It's that he was on the counter. He could have fallen. He could have been cut. That bowl was heavy ceramic." "I was holding him," I said, but my voice was weak. The sight of the broken pieces in the dustpan was swallowing my words. "You can't hold him and mix batter at the same time," she said, turning around. Her face wasn't angry. It was fearful, and that was worse. "It's not safe. It's just not safe. What if you'd turned away for a second?" I looked from her fearful eyes to the broken pieces of my past on the floor, and in that moment, I didn't see a concerned mother. I saw a judge, and I saw the evidence of my own carelessness. My precious bowl was just a hazard, a stupid, dangerous thing. "You're right," I whispered. "I'm sorry." I finished cleaning in silence. She took Leo upstairs. I threw the pieces of the blue bowl in the trash. I felt like I was throwing a part of myself away. That night, the murmuring upstairs was louder. I heard my name, my mother. "It's not just today, David," constantly walking on eggshells. "My house too." The word "my" hit me like a physical blow. My house. It wasn't our home. It was hers. And I was the guest who had broken a precious rule. A guest who was becoming a problem. The next week was a cold, polite dance. I was extra careful. I spoke less. I made myself smaller. I tried to become invisible. Then, on Thursday, David had to leave for a 3-day business trip. The air in the house grew thinner. The unspoken things between Maya and me grew larger, until they filled every room. On the second night David was gone, I came upstairs after putting Leo to bed. Maya was sitting at the kitchen table, a single mug of tea in front of her. She wasn't reading. She wasn't on her phone. She was just sitting, staring at the wall. She looked utterly drained. "Can I make you some more tea?" I asked softly. She jumped, as if she'd forgotten I was there. She looked at me for a long time. Then she took a deep, shaky breath. "Mom," she said, "we need to talk." I sat down across from her. My hands were cold. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice a bare whisper. "I love you. I do. And I am so, so grateful for everything you've done for Leo. I feel like a stranger in my own home." Every decision I make for my son, I feel like I have to defend it. Every time I walk into a room, I'm editing myself. I'm so tired, Mom. Tears were streaming down her face now, silent and fast. I don't want to be the bad guy, but this arrangement, it's breaking me, and I think it's breaking us. You, me, David, we're all so polite and miserable. I wanted to say something, to tell her she was wrong, but I couldn't, because she was right. I felt it too. The tightness, the constant, quiet strain. David will never ask you to go, she said, wiping her cheeks. He loves you too much. He'd let this go on forever, until there was nothing left of any of us. So I have to be the one. She looked straight at me, her eyes full of a painful, terrible honesty. I think it's time, for all of us, don't you? And that's when I smiled, because, in her tears, I saw not a daughter-in-law pushing me out, but a drowning woman, and the only lifeline she could see was to clear the space around her. I was the space. I saw the truth, my love, my presence, my desire to help. It had become a cage for her, and for me. We were both trapped in our roles, the interfering mother-in-law, the ungrateful daughter-in-law, neither of which was true, but both of which were real. Okay, I said. There was nothing else to say. I packed my suitcase. It didn't take long. I realized most of what was in this basement apartment wasn't really me anymore. It was the Nana version of me, the useful, quiet version. David came home the next day. Maya had told him. He came down to my room, his face ashen, his eyes red. Mom, no, this is crazy. She's just stressed. We'll figure this out. This is your home. I took his hands. They were so much like his father's. David, I said, my voice calm, look at me. I am okay. This is not a tragedy. But where will you go? I've already called Mrs. Henderson from my old book club. She's been looking for a tenant for her garden cottage since her husband passed. It's small. It's perfect. It has a rose bush by the door. He looked like a little boy again. But why? Why is this happening? Because, I said, choosing my words as carefully as placing stitches in a quilt. Love sometimes needs room to breathe. Right now, my love for you, and for Leo, and even for Maya, it's taking up all the air in her lungs. She needs to be the mother of this house. And I need to remember how to be the mother of my own life. I feel like I'm failing you, he whispered. Oh, my dear boy, I said, pulling him into a hug. You could never fail me. Letting me go, when it's the right thing to do, that's love too. The move was quiet. Leo didn't understand. He kept bringing me his toys, as if to bribe me to stay. The last time I held him in that house, I breathed in his little boy's smell, memorizing it. Maya stood by the door. She looked devastated, guilty, but also relieved. It was all there on her face. Mom, I thank you, she said, her voice breaking. No, I said, thank you for being brave enough to say what everyone was feeling. I got in the car. David was driving me. I didn't look back at the house. I looked ahead, at the road. The garden cottage was a little jewel box, 1 room, plus a tiny kitchen and bath. Mrs. Henderson had left fresh bread and jam on the counter. The silence here was different. It wasn't empty. It was waiting. The first week was the hardest. The silence was so loud, I'd wake up and for a second, listen for Leo's chatter. It would hit me all over again, the absence. But then, slowly, something else happened. I'd make a cup of tea and drink it while it was still hot. I'd listen to whatever music I wanted. I left a book open on the table. I didn't make my bed for 2 days. It was a strange, guilty, then liberating feeling. David and Leo visited every other day at first. The visits were different. They were events. Special. We'd go to the park. We'd have picnics. I was Nananon visit, not Nanadonst. I could be fun, spontaneous, and yes, a little bit of a rule breaker again. Because I wasn't part of the daily structure, I was a treat. And Maya, she started coming to. At first it was just to drop off David and Leo. Then, one Saturday, she stayed for a cup of tea, just the two of us. It was awkward, but the awkwardness was honest. How are you, really? She asked. Lonely, sometimes, I said honestly, but also free. How are you? Guilty, she said, her eyes filling, and also free. We both smiled at that. It was a sad smile, but a real one. The space I had vacated in their home began to fill not with another person, but with them. David and Maya had to rediscover how to be a team. Maya had to own her role as the mother of the house, and they did. I could see it in the way they looked at each other when they visited me. A tired but solid connection, REFORGED. One day, About 6 months after I moved, Maya came over alone. She had a bag with her. She looked nervous. I was cleaning out the basement, she said, getting it ready to make a proper playroom for Leo. She pulled something out of the bag, wrapped in a tea towel. I found this. I couldn't throw it away. She handed it to me. I unwrapped it. It was the largest piece of the blue bowl, the curved base, with a deep crack running through it. She had cleaned it, smoothed the edges. I know it's not the same, she said quickly. It's broken, but I thought maybe you could use it for key or as a dish for a plant. I remembered your face when it broke, and I'm so sorry for how I reacted that day. I was scared for Leo, but I was cruel about something you loved. I held the heavy piece of ceramic. It was useless as a bowl, but it was beautiful. The crack wasn't a flaw. It was part of its story now, a story of being broken and found and given back. It's perfect, I said, and I meant it. Thank you. That was our forgiveness, not in a big speech, but in a broken piece of blue pottery, offered and accepted. So, here I am, in my cottage with the rose bush. The silence here is my own. Sometimes it is lonely, but more often now, it is peaceful. I see my family too, maybe 3 times a week. We have dinner here, or I go there. The welcome is warm, and the goodbye is sweet. There are no more unspoken words choking the air. There is space between us now, and in that space, our love has room to grow again, in a new shape. David doesn't look tired with guilt anymore. Maya smiles more freely. Leo runs to me with pure, uncomplicated joy. I am his Nana who lives in the flower cottage, a special destination. I thought I had lost my place in the world, but I was wrong. I just had to find a new one, a smaller, quieter place that is entirely my own. That day at the door, when Maya asked me to leave, I smiled because I suddenly saw the truth she was too kind to say out loud. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for the people you cherish is to give them back their own story, to step out of the frame so they can see the picture they are making together. And in doing that, you find you have a canvas of your own to paint again. My blue bowl sits on my windowsill now. I've planted a small, resilient succulent in it. The green plant grows happily in the broken space, its roots finding purchase in the cracks. It is more beautiful now than it ever was before. Life, I've learned, is not about staying perfectly intact. It's about learning how to hold the broken pieces and finding that they can still hold something beautiful. They can still hold life, and so can we.